Welcome to the Getting High on Leadership series featuring Paul Karasik. Paul is one of America's top management consultants helping leaders succeed. He is the author of 9 books, including Sweet Persuasion and Brilliant Thoughts and Provocative Questions. His insights appear regularly in major publications, and he is one of the most sought-after executive coaches. Paul founded the American Seminar Leaders Association and the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. He is a popular speaker at national conferences and has been on stages across all 50 states and internationally. Paul's work addresses the question, how can we transform conflict in business into collaboration? With decades of experience in management, leadership, and psychedelics, he brings a unique perspective on personal and societal growth. In this series, we'll be discussing his latest book, Getting High on Leadership, The Leader's Guide to Higher Consciousness. We'll be exploring the concepts, techniques, and mindset required to revolutionize leadership. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the series. My name is Sanchez, your host, and we are joined by the author of Getting High on Leadership, Paul Karasik. Paul and I are taking a journey through his book within this series and stopping in each section for a conversation around consciousness. Today, we're looking at the final section of part 1, which is called Pure Attention, and you can find it on page 54 if you're following along. Paul, welcome, and man, if there were ever a chapter that embodied something I need to work on is, I think, pure attention. I've got so many things I'm trying to work on at the same time that it can be hard at times to carve out that dedication and really focus on one project at a time. So I'm looking forward to this conversation personally and professionally, of course.
Yeah, Rob, you bring up something that's kind of inherent, but also very current, and that's this distraction syndrome. We're just in a world where it's just life is one big distraction. It's about memes. It's about, 10-second video clips and shorts and scrolling and it's a world that the word attention is almost alien. We're in a fragmented kind of consciousness right now.
Yeah, we've definitely set ourselves up for a hard trek uphill when it comes to attention with everything we've got. From the work life to the home, there's notifications popping up everywhere, things dragging your attention across many screens or even outside of screens. There's a constant flow of new content. Even if you think, if you partake in something more wholesome, right, and you're reading, well, there are hundreds of books available and coming out in the next few months, and it becomes a constant. Anything you try to focus on probably has that same problem.
They don't even read the books.
Yeah, then you're just collecting books. I've got a few books I've collected.
Yeah, they buy them and don't read them, or they do the condensation. Or I think there's like a 9-minute. You can I saw it on you can get the book down to like 7 seconds or something.
They just tell you the core cliff notes.
Yeah, just like how to win friends and win friends and influence people. Just be nice, like just a one word condensation. People don't have the ability to concentrate anymore, to give attention. And in a world that's so distracted and so fragmented, this is it's really challenging.
So along with everything else you have to put on as a leader, you also have to deal with this need to have more control, more willpower over your focus and your attention.
Exactly.
So that you can actually embody some of this. And I think knowing a little bit that society has set you up already with a rough hand is important, but it's not impossible to kind of improve on that and try to hone that attention in, or at least realize when you're in that flow state or fully focused.
I mean, I've been doing leadership conferences and trainings and workshops and all kinds of stuff for years. And we used to have this one workshop event called the Leadership Symposium. And high-level leaders would come to this thing, and we would do a training, and I could tell so much about them by their attention level. I could see how effective they were as a leader. One guy had I think 3 telephones and I asked him, and I asked him, please just, this is our time. This is to work on ourselves. Let's just give ourselves that gift. Let's put our phone, let's stay right here. Let's give our attention to this day of just working on ourselves as leaders. What a treat. And he pulls out 3 phones, and I'm going this is what you're finding. People look at their telephone, I think it's a couple hundred times a day. The number is off the charts on how many times a day people look. I mean, it's 5-10 times an hour, and minimally 5-10 times an hour. I mean, people could,
it is a different kind of pandemic going on. Pandemic of the mind and attention as a resource.
And think about how this attention deficit that we have in terms of society as a whole, what effect that has on the leader. What does inattention do to a leader? I mean, it's the worst possible scenario to not really know what's going on, to not listen to people, to not be present in all aspects of our leadership role. I mean, you cannot be in. That's why I say I could tell a lot about their leadership level by their very presence in the training, in the workshop.
How did they show up, really?
Yeah.
And especially in something intended to improve leadership, and then seeing the focus just within that, I mean, I may have a lot of projects, but if I pay for something I have to sit through all day, I'm bringing a pencil. I'm going to be writing stuff down.
But it didn't matter to them. And that's right. That's the way I feel too. If I'm going to go, I want to give my attention. I want to get my money's worth and value out of this experience.
If anything, just for those kind of selfish reasons, hey, I did this.
Pay attention. Well, he thought he was paying attention. That
was him giving 100%, at least what he thought.
Yeah, I'm going to sit here, but if something comes up, I'm going to go and give that attention, and not you. Whereas the other people, most of the people will say, okay, I'm shutting the phone. Let's just be here now, as the expression goes. And so attention is critical, and pure attention is not just listening to words, but it's a much deeper kind of listening, and it's kind of deep listening. It's listening to the feelings, listening to what's unspoken. When I say pure attention, that's what opens up with pure attention. Not, it's that much deeper level beyond the words that I'm talking about. Somebody could say one thing, we've all had that experience, but they mean something else. Are you mad? Nope. No, I'm not mad.
If you're not paying attention, you just say okay, great, next topic.
Yeah, you would just say, oh, well, she said she's not mad, or he said he's not mad, so I guess he's not mad. No. If you listen, if you're really paying attention, not just listening to words, but paying pure attention, that's what we're talking about here. Total and complete attention. Not just the audio, not just the visual, not just intuitive, but complete. Then you're going to get a communication that's much deeper. So how do we get that communication? Is by letting the ego sit aside. Again, ego is part of consciousness, but it's a limited form of consciousness because it's personalized. Higher consciousness is impersonal. It includes the personal, but it's beyond that to extend to the very fabric of the universe when we say higher consciousness. Personal consciousness, limited. Higher consciousness, unlimited. How do we get to that unlimited? Is not through any effort, but through seeing the limitation of the egoic mind, of the personalized attention. Paul is listening. That is not pure attention. That's Paul listening. Listening is pure. Listening is pure. Watching is pure. But if I'm involved with it, then it's going to be limited by that entity called Paul. I'm going to be seeing it through Paul's experience, through Paul's knowledge of that particular thing, right? I'm not going to be really seeing it for what it is in its purest form. You see what I'm saying, Rob?
Definitely, yeah. That ego is kind of shading the perspective
Completely.
And it's in some case altering it so much that you're seeing something different.
You're seeing something different. You're not seeing the truth. And now you're responding to an image of something that's not real. It's when you give it pure attention, when you get the ego out of the way, what you took as a person, you personalized it. Oh, now you see it wasn't personal at all, that's just the way the person is. They said some offhand remark, it was really not very nice. Oh, that person doesn't like me. No, that was your person. You go, actually, maybe the person was...
That's because you're driving the perspective, right? You're interpreting this really all about you still.
Through a screwed up filter. A screwed up filter. And it's changing the whole thing. That person wasn't mad at you. They were just had a cramp or a stomach ache that day or something. It had nothing to do with you. Like, even though their response was short and curt and whatever, but you didn't see it because you didn't give it pure attention. You gave it personalized attention. But if you pulled back from that and said, wow, that person's not in a great mood, I wonder what could be going on. There could be an infinite number of things, not just they're mad at me, know.
And they've chosen now to express it.
And they're expressing it now. That's that egoic expression. You can't get there. You can't get to pure attention. And what's the value of this? The value of pure attention is in relationship. That's what it is. When you give your presence, and this is deeper than listening. This is listening on steroids. This is total acceptance of the moment, total seeing and hearing from that larger consciousness and not the personalized consciousness. Then you have the opportunity to create a deep relationship with that person. Because otherwise you're just creating a relationship with their image, whatever their image is. Their image is that created egoic self, Paul, Rob, whoever, that has a history, that was born then, that studied there, that has this life experience. But to have that's an image. It's a thought image, right? It's a mental image of who Rob is or who Paul is. But to have a relationship with you at the higher level, with your consciousness, then I have to be in consciousness with your consciousness
to even begin. Yeah.
To even begin, there's no other path there. I have to see you through a non-egoic, what's in it for me? How will this affect me? Is what they're doing going to be negative for me or positive to me? I'm listening and I'm judging and I'm criticizing and I'm analyzing, all from the ego. What we're suggesting in this chapter is to listen to that person, to be in relationship with them from consciousness, with their consciousness. So when I see you in this video right now, I don't just see Rob, I also see pure consciousness.
Right.
That
within those
is
you're interacting
just as present as the Rob story.
Yeah, and to kind of come full circle to, what we were talking about, just attention in general, and like attention in life, and like the issues that society is having with attention. I think is in a way an analogy to the type of attention that we're talking about here, where instead of being distracted by scrolling on your phone or checking your email or seeing who messaged or what's next on the calendar, it's more being distracted by those egoic pulls, and those limitations, those experiences that you've had that can constantly pull you back into a rut or pull you back into a kind of an imprinted way of being. Those are the distractions you're avoiding in this approach. It's not necessarily turn off your phone, but it is a little bit. It can be kind of as simple as that, if you could just turn off that egoic reliance.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not a turn off. It's, in other words, if you turned it off, who would be turning it off? The egoic mind.
That's the real question.
Yeah. So well, it's obvious it's going to be the egoic mind. So therefore, it's not really turned off. The problem can't turn off the problem if you are the problem. So something new has to come in. Something that is not part of that. So my point here is trying to turn off that egoic mind it can't turn it off. But being aware and conscious, it drops off by itself, not by me doing anything. Because if I did anything, it would be part of my egoic mind. So it has to be pure consciousness, seeing, right? And then it just falls off. It just, you see it. It just falls off. I had a job. I was telling my daughter the story. I had a job at one point in my life as a waiter. And I'd been in the music business and kind of just I was young, and I said, you know what, let me just get out of this striving. Let me just get a job that doesn't take a lot of brain power. Forget about my career for a while. And I did it for about a year or so. But I remember going in, and I loved being a waiter. I really enjoyed it. It was like, I enjoyed the people and the interaction. It was very satisfying. I made really good money. But there was one day that I got up, put on my white shirt, and I looked in the mirror as I was putting on my bow tie, and it just didn't work anymore. I wasn't a waiter anymore.
And I knew, moment.
Yeah, I looked in the mirror and I go, this is not you. I didn't consciously say, okay, it's time now. Let's get back to your career and stop this waiter stuff. And let's get serious here. And, you got this happening and that. I didn't have to use the egoic mind in any way. Consciousness, looking in the mirror, consciousness just communicated.
Yeah, it made it very obvious, didn't it? It wasn't a subtle signal.
No, I just went, this is not me anymore. I'm not the waiter. I can't identify that just through seeing it. And that's the way the change will happen. Not me giving attention, not giving attention, whatever the case. But you see what I'm saying? As long as I'm trying to do something, as long as I'm doing something, it's not pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is pure attention. That's what pure consciousness is. Pure attention. When I say pure attention in this chapter, I'm meaning pure consciousness. It's the same thing. It's not, so I'm giving attention from that presence. And we all know that place. It's not, this is not some cosmic thing. You don't have to go off to a monastery or a Zen Buddhist center. We all know that place of looking out at the ocean and just dissolving into the horizon. We've all known that moment when we were engaged in something where our ego wasn't there, and we were in that what state called flow, and we just were playing that baseball game or doing that art or whatever, and there was no thinking. We all know that place. We all know that place when we were born and looked out, and we were in an awakened state. We were in a totally alive, awakened state. And we could see and we could feel and we can touch in a way that was so fresh because we weren't attached to that egoic self. So we all know this place. This is not reserved for enlightened Zen masters. This is a place that we all are totally familiar with.
Right.
But we've been taught to identify with that limited self. We've been trained to do that since we were like 3. You know, who's that boy? Who's a good boy, Paul? You know, like you'll be somebody someday. Like just that concept of you'll be something someday. If I'm universal consciousness, where do I have to go? Why? I don't have to wait to a day to be. I am it now.
Yeah, you are everything, and you have been
I am everything
all along.
now. And you're telling me because I'm 7, I have to be somebody when I'm 13. And when I'm 13, I have to be somebody when I'm 15. When I'm not somebody the whole time. And so I just want to encourage everybody to understand that these are not, this material is not reserved for anybody unusual. We did not come into this incarnation lacking any skill to find a life without suffering. That we did not. We did not. We have every skill we need. We don't need any teacher, any book, any video. We need only to look inside. And this series is not meant to be provide a solution to people, but it's to point to the solution,
Yes.
which is not me and not you.
Some guidelines.
It's me inside. And that's where the solution is. So pure attention creates relationships that are enduring, relationships that are productive, relationships that are creative, because we're in relationship with the greater part of that person, that universal intelligence with them, that universal impersonal part of them. And that allows for the most effective and productive relationships in leadership, when we can see from and act from and pay attention to that presence that is beyond the egoic mind. And that's when things really happen smoothly. And relationships, they are the secret to a great life. Most of our life, when we say life is good, it's because relationships are good.
Right.
And when you say life is bad, it's usually because relationships are bad. And it's really that simple. So how do we get to great relationships? Through pure attention.
Wonderful, Paul. Yeah, no, thank you for that wisdom there. And I think there's much more to unpack in this section. So folks, take this video, this episode of the podcast to heart, to mind, and try to find yourself within that pure attention when you can. Realize when you're there and try to embody it. But don't try too hard, because then it's the ego taking over. And appreciate you guys listening and watching, and we'll see you on the next section. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Getting High on Leadership series. If you have any questions, you can comment below or send them in via email to paul@paulkarasik.com. Follow him on Instagram at PK_theconversation. Find out more at wholesalerinstitute.com and psychedelic-awakening.com. The Getting High on Leadership series is produced by Rob Sanchez and Apartment 113, which can be found at apartment113.com and followed on Instagram at APT_113.